What's going on, guys and gals? This is Autotech. Okay, so I was excited about this modification. Screw the tires, screw the radiator kit. This one is gonna look badass, and I was excited for it. I ordered it basically the evening that I signed the paperwork to get the bike because I knew I wanted it. It's a must-have. I'm looking forward to getting this thing on here. This is a Higdonion, Higdonion, or it might be Nion. We'll double check that. Trail cage with skid plate, and then I opted to get the upper section. Now the deal behind this is it's not a big brand name company or anything. It's a guy out of Las Vegas, and he owns and rides an FJ09, so he designed this thing for his bike. So you know the quality is going to be good there, because when you build something for your own self, you're going to make it good. Alright, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, and he really, he doesn't know I'm making the video, so I'm not going to plug his company too much. I just like it when companies treat you pretty good and go out of their way for you. Like, he replied to my emails at like 8 o'clock at night, and he helped me out with the anal rapage that is shipping to Canada. So he treated me pretty good there. But let's stop talking about it and let's get this thing on the bike. So included in your kit, obviously you get the skid plate, you get your side engine guards, and then if you opt for it, you can get the upper guards as well. Now this kit, I believe it's listed for the FZ09 and the XRS 900. And then in the kit, you get the hardware for attaching the skid plate, plugs for the end of the pipes, and new engine bolts. Alright, getting right to it. Little disclaimer here. Do not remove all your engine bolts at one time, because you will have a really bad time. We're going to do one side at a time, and we're not going to tighten them up. We're going to get them we'll touch them down a little bit, but we won't do the final torquing until everything is in and the unit is square. So take your 8mm Allen socket, and if you can, use a 1/2-inch breaker bar just to make your life easy. And then we're going to remove this bolt. And now we're going to use an 8mm Allen again, and we're going to remove this bolt, but I'm going to have to give this a good breaker bar action. There we go. So what I'm going to do is, before I actually fully remove that bolt, I'm going to make sure that engine's not going to drop or hit my stuff. Alright, so the engine didn't move. We've got the 2 factory bolts out. Now, it doesn't say anything about the washers, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check and see if these will go into the engine cage, and then if it does, I'm going to reuse the washers. The easiest way to identify your parts is common sense. So you can tell right here that that's going to go like that. And then if we take this one, you can see here that those line up just like that. So do a little playing around, you'll figure it out. It's not too terribly hard. So the nice thing about this kit is it's actually designed to be an add-on accessory, like this upper section. So if the budget doesn't allow for it, get yourself the lower section for now, and then at a later date you could opt to get the upper section, and then all you got to do is just remove the hardware, pop this in, and reinstall it. Even though these are powder coated and there's not much of a chance of rusting, I'm going to put just a little smear of anti-seize on there, just so, like, if I'm ever doing any work that I've got to pull those side fairings off, I can remove this with ease and it won't get rusted or anything. It's just, it takes you 10 seconds, and then it'll take you a couple minutes to clean the excess off as it smooshes off, so it's just worth it. And now you're going to pop this in. And then use two hands and just kind of work it in, pop it down, and then we'll be ready to get it up to the engine. So there's what it looks like with it fully inserted. If you look through the hole, you can actually see that it is bottomed out on there. In the event you're having a little bit of a struggle, put this down on a soft surface, like even the paper here, and then just tap this side, slowly work it in. Don't use the bolts to suck this up or try to suck this up, because you don't want to damage the threads in your engine. So those washers on the bolts do fit, so put a little bit of blue on the threads. There's nothing really saying whether you want to use oil or, you know, anti-seize or whatever, so I'm just going to use blue because that's my thing. Okay, so I hope this angle turns out all right. Use the socket to help you, and then we're just going to line that up, and we're going to start threading that in. Give it quite a few turns, and then carefully hold that in place. Grab your other bolt, get it started on there, and then we're going to start this one by hand. You should be able to turn it a few times, you know, give it a wiggle, and then you'll know that you're not cross-threading it or anything like that. So I hope that showed up on that angle there. You just want it sitting up there. So now we're going to just thread those bolts in some more. We're not going to tighten them up or anything, so if you accidentally go too far and you touch it down, just back it out like a half turn or even 3/4 of a turn. As you can see, I'm just holding the ratchet up here like a screwdriver almost. If you have to use force to thread it in, something is wrong, and stop what you're doing. Because the thing with engine case threads is they've got nowhere to go except into the block of the engine, and so you'll end up splitting your case, and that's a really bad time. So I accidentally touched this one down, so I'm just gonna back it up a little bit, and then I'm going to basically snug this one up. So now we come on over to this side and get these two bolts broken loose, and then remove those two bolts. Alright, got the two bolts out, as you can see, and then I've got the two new bolts ready to go with the washers on them, but we're going to come over here, get our side, and we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize on there, and then we're going to pop it into here. So just remember, with anti-seize, little goes a long way. You know, if a little is good, a lot isn't better. You don't need to have it gooping out of there. All you need is just a thin little film, just like I'm doing right there. You know, in fact, if you look here, even when I did squish those together, I don't even know if it'll show up on camera. You can just see it a little bit. That'll wipe right off. Alright, so I had a little bit of troubles popping this one in, so I just came right over, used a rubber mallet, just gave it some very soft taps. Like if you notice, like I didn't even mar the texturing or anything like that. So like it's literally just like tap, 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 and you'll get it to seat in there no problem. And just like the other side, a little bit of blue on those threads. Alright, and again, I hope this angle shows up. We're going to use our socket, hold this up to the engine, and get that bolt started. Just a few turns in, and then you can grab your other bolt, get it started on your socket, and then just get that going in there. You want to be able to feel it turning in, like no problem. If you know, if something's wrong and you have to force it, you're doing something wrong. Like it's not lined up, or you're cross-threading or something. And now just holding your ratchet like a screwdriver again, you're just going to wind that in. Oh, I just touched it down, so we're going to back that out a little bit. And then same deal on this side. We are going to just wind this one in, and then if we accidentally touch it down, we will back it out a half turn. So for mounting the skid plate, it's 19 millimeter bolts and 19 millimeter nuts. Now, the best option you have is to use an extension on a shallow socket. Now, the problem is you're still going to lose, let's see if I can do this one-handed here, you're still going to lose quite a bit of the bolt in the socket. So, a little tech tip for you is take one of the nuts, put it in there, and then put the bolt in. So you see now that bolt is just like that. So now when you go to start it, you're gonna have much more of the bolt sticking out, and then you won't have like just a little bit of the bolt sticking out, and then it's like, fuck, I can't thread the thing on. So it's like, here's your tech tip of the day. Now these are nylon lock washer nuts, so you don't need to thread lock them. Take some of that brown paper that he supplies you with, put it underneath your engine so that in the event you drop this, you don't scratch it before you get to a trail. There's nothing worse than putting a big scratch in something before you even get out and ride it. So to start the skid plate a little bit easier, I found if I actually just left that side hang, let it do its own thing, and then you know, you can hold your nut there and thread in the bolt a little bit, get this back one started up, and now we're going to move to the other side and lift it up into place. Alright, so this side was actually not too bad to start, especially with the other side hanging up there, so not bad. Now we are going to tighten up those skid plate bolts. I kind of forget sometimes that if you're not in Canada and you know, you have no idea what millimeters are, you can use 3/4 inch for this stuff. So we are going to snug this up and then we'll torque it. So same deal on this side. Get it snugged up and we'll torque it later on. Repeat the process for this side and snug up that last skid plate bolt. Now the torque spec for the engine bolts isn't included in the instructions, but the Yamaha spec is 33 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque all the engine bolts to 33 foot-pounds. Don't forget about this side, torque them to 33 foot-pounds. And just because I'm always really anal about my bikes, I'm going to recheck all 4 engine bolts. So there isn't a torque spec for the skid plate, but nice coarse bolts like that, 18 foot-pounds will be more than enough to hold that. You could even go to 25 if you wanted to. Make sure you torque all your skid plate bolts. Don't forget about the other side. Now I ended up changing my mind and I'm torquing these to 25 foot-pounds. Alright, I took a moment there and cleaned some stuff up. So now we have the plugs. And this shouldn't be too hard to figure out. Go like so. And like so. That's not fitting in there too good. Alright, so we're not quite done yet. So you gotta pop your little plugs in. Same deal on this side. 2 hands works lovely for this. And then he includes some for the ends of the upper cage. Again, 2 hands is amazing for this. Alright, so for these bigger plugs, you're going to find that they're not an interference fit like these ones here. These ones are actually for crash protection. They're made out of a good sliding material. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually secure these in place. Now, if you take note, that goes in there like a good 3/4 of an inch, almost an inch. So you can use a tape measure or whatever, but we're going to have to drill a hole. In the kit, he supplies you with some self-tapping screws. I'm not a fan of starting a hole with self-tapping screws, so we're going to drill a small pilot hole. So about a 1/2 inch in, use a pilot punch and just start yourself a little divot. And then use a little 1/8 drill bit and put a hole through there. Okay, So there you have it. Now it's nicely secured in there. Unfortunately, you're going to have to repeat this process 3 more times. Okay, so I screw up too. As you can notice, there's no head of the bolt to that. I was just winding it in, it hit the end, and then it sheared the top right off. So I mean, I guess it makes for a really clean install, but that's going to prove to be a problem anytime I need to get this skid plate off to do an oil change or anything like that. So I decided to take this bolt back out too. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just epoxy these in, because then what I could do is like in the event of a crash, I mean, it's going to be pushing against it anyways. It's not going to be pulling outwards on it. So I'm going to put like a couple dabs of epoxy, pop them in, and then anytime I need to remove them, I can just grab it with a wrench, or not a wrench, a big pair of pliers, break the epoxy, and then slide it back out. So just for demonstrative purposes, I'm going to show you what this looks like here. Any 5-minute epoxy will do, and like you don't even need to go the whole way around. I'm just going to do a couple dabs and then pop it in, and then you just let it sit for about 20 minutes or whatever, and then it's like usable after an hour. So do it as soon as you get home from work, and then you're ready to ride after dinner. So, I mean, this Higdonion trail cage with upper section is definitely badass. Like, this thing is beefy as shit. It's definitely gonna do what you need it to do. I was talking to him, and apparently Graves exhaust and like MGB hot bodies fits. Apparently Akrapovich does not. I wasn't too terribly concerned about it. I'll get an exhaust that fits if I ever end up getting one. I was more so wanting the skid plate so that I don't rip my oil pan or anything like that off. And I'm not sure if it'll show up there, but it's nice and tight to the exhaust, so you're really not giving up any ground clearance. I mean, this thing just, like, it looks beefy. It looks awesome. And like, it's very well built, so it's going to be better than just having frame sliders and stuff like that. Plus, it looks badass. And when you're riding on the bike, it's really not going to be that much, like, it's not sticking out all the way or anything like that. It probably didn't even add 20 pounds to the bike. It's just a sacrifice you're going to have to make if you want to ride your FJ09 off-road. So I highly recommend this thing. I mean, hopefully I don't ever have to test it. That would be ideal. But yeah, you know, if I do have to test it, at least it's there. As you can see, it does not interfere with your belly pan, and it doesn't hit that god-awful big muffler. Your kickstand, tons of room, so no need to worry about anything like that. I just can't get over how good this thing looks. I regret nothing about this choice, except not ordering it sooner. He offers it in different colors too, so if you want it in bright green to grab every cop's attention, or if you want it in purple, I think he offers it in red and blue. This is the textured black, and it goes good with the fender, the carbon fiber thing, and the frame. So if you're looking for a low-key install, the textured black is the way to go. So I hope this shows you a really good option for a good skid plate, engine cage option for your FJ09 or FZ09. You do have to remove the skid plate to do the oil changes, but again, it's just a 19mm wrench and socket, or 3/4 inch wrench and socket. Once you do epoxy these in, you'll just have to use a pair of pliers and crack them free, and then you can get them back off. I would imagine if you asked really nice, he would sell you additional of these, just if over time you started wearing them out with pliers or whatever. Or, you know, use the machine screw and stuff like that. It's just, I had one break on the second one, so I went ahead, took the top one out, and I'm not going to drill the other side. So that's my way of installing it. You can do whatever you'd like to your bike. With mine, I just don't want to have to deal with, you know, accidentally breaking one on the other side, which, I mean, I probably shouldn't have been using a drill to tighten those up. So it's kind of my mistake. Let me know below what you think of this. I think it's pretty badass. You might disagree with me. You might think it's stupid, but you know, I guess you're entitled to your own opinion. Let me know what engine cage or frame slider setup you're using on your bike. I'm definitely curious to hear the options. And you know, is your skid plate as beefy as mine? And thanks for taking the time and watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.